is a major problem and needs to be tackled through regulation and through taxation.
The car of the future may come to you from Apple or Intel, not necessarily from General Motors, because as we electrify the jalopy, it makes it less relevant what the juice is. What do I mean? The car itself is becoming more software, more electrification in the form of lithium-ion batteries and command and control software, rather than simply the old gears and transmissions and grease of the 100-year-old model of the automobile. And the more electric the automobile becomes, the smarter it becomes. The more it becomes the core competence of Silicon Valley and Bangalore, not so much of Detroit.
De nieuwe autobedrijfjes komen vooral in Silicon Valley snel van de grond. Zoals Fisker, een bedrijfje dat als eerste met een plug-in hybrid op de markt wil komen. Een van de investeerders is Kleiner, Perkins, Caulfield en Byers. Een groepje durf-investeerders, die onder andere als een van de eerste geld stak in de zoekmachine Google.
In Silicon Valley, the startup has always had the advantage of speed, because you focus on one problem and you develop the technology with a best-of-breed engineering team. Ray Lane, a managing partner of Kleiner Perkins. Most of the large car companies can't execute very fast. They've got large bureaucracies. They have to make sure that every car they put on the road has been, passes all of the possible tests. Over the longer term, if EVs are a big market, then the OEMs will be there. The question is, can you build a new brand? Can you build a new car company in that gap of time that exists? I mean, General Motors and Ford's market caps now are so low. I mean, you compare it's frightening to compare them against a number of companies here in Silicon Valley that are only software companies. And so they're so concerned about their shareholders and how to protect their shareholders that the best way to protect the shareholders is to sell more cars that they can make money on. And so what they do is keep cutting back on expenses, keep cutting back on headcount, keep cutting back on plant capacity. They're making the moves that they think are necessary. They're not thinking about investing for the long term. And electric vehicles will not make a difference to their bottom line for at least 5 years, maybe 8 years. So, that's not how they're going to solve their short-term problems. So it's a result of short-term thinking, quarterly earnings type of thinking. And most big companies do think that way.
En dan is er Tesla. Zij verkopen nu al elektrische auto's en hopen een goed marktaandeel opgebouwd te hebben voordat de grote fabrikanten zich aan de nieuwe omstandigheden hebben aangepast.
The reason I fund Tesla is because I really think it's very important that we accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles. Elon Musk, I'm the chairman and the product architect of the company. And it was not with the idea of just creating a sports car that's very expensive, because that doesn't really change the world. That's not going to make a dent on our energy usage. But the sports car is really just an entry point to the marketplace. And from the sports car, we'll go to Model 2 and Model 3. And in each case, with each successive model, we'll increase the production volume and decrease the price. So Model 2 is actually going to be a 4-door, 5-passenger luxury sports sedan at about half the price of our sports car. So it'll be around maybe the $59,000 range. And when you take into account the fact that it'll probably only cost about $5 to recharge the car and go over 200 miles, so you take the operating cost into account, that's equivalent to a much lower cost gasoline sedan. And then going to Model 3, we want to try to get an electric car that's around the $30,000 price point. So then it's really, many people can afford it at that stage. We're very good at performance. 0 to 60 miles per hour or 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is about 3.9 seconds, which actually understates the true acceleration, because the 0 to 60 is normally measured from the point of clutch engagement to reaching 100 kilometers, but there's no clutch engagement delay because we have no clutch. This got better acceleration than any Aston Martin or any Ferrari currently in production. The Enzo is faster.
So this is like filling it up?
Yeah, this is basically, you just, that's it. It only costs, at current California electricity rates, $4 to recharge the whole car and go 220 miles.
And that's the time between charges, 220 miles.
Yeah.
And how long does it take to recharge it?
It takes about 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, although we're working on an upgrade that will allow a charge in about an hour.
And it's just a regular electricity that
The charger is built in, so actually all you need is an extension cord. Because you worry, like, what if you go to a friend's place or you go to a cottage somewhere or at a hotel?
Yeah.
It's no problem. You just plug it into the wall.
Okay. And how do you start the car?
Well, you don't actually start it. You just turn it on.
You just turn it on? Can you show us?
Sure. That's it.
That's it. And now it's ready to run.
Yeah.
And it's silent.
Yeah. Nothing.
Okay.
Companies are not very good at revolutionary innovation. They're okay when it comes to incremental, things here and there, but they have a real problem with, taking the next leap forward. That somebody needs to lead the way. A smaller company needs to lead the way. I mean, why does Google exist? Why didn't Microsoft just completely own that market? Why does Google continue to gain market share? I mean, how do any of these startups really come into being? Also, if you think about what's special about an electric car, it's things like the batteries, the electric motor, the power electronics, the software to manage all of that stuff. And you know what? I mean, those skills are present in Silicon Valley to a greater degree than anywhere else in the world. All right, are you holding on?
Yeah, I'm holding on. This is a hydrogen-powered car with a fuel cell. You have a very impressive acceleration when you launch the vehicle. It's not tapping into the fossil fuel. It taps into hydrogen as an energy carrier, and we use a fuel cell, which is a technology where you convert the hydrogen and oxygen out of the air into water, and, very important for us, into electricity to drive the vehicle. Looking at the technology, that is a new technology, and you always start with the first demonstration vehicles, and the next step, which is the very important one, is to get them in customer hands.
Hydrogen as a storage mechanism is a terrible storage mechanism. It's extremely energy inefficient to create hydrogen, and then it is a lousy means of storing energy. First of all, hydrogen is not naturally occurring. Okay, not on Earth anyway. So you have to get the hydrogen from somewhere. So you say, where are you going to get the hydrogen? Well, you can take natural gas, which is CH4, chop the carbon off, and have your hydrogen. But then you're just using natural gas. Or you could say, well, let's split water with electrolysis. That's very inefficient. You generate an enormous amount of heat when you do that. So then after you split the water, you've got to separate out the hydrogen and oxygen. You've got to take the hydrogen, you've got to pressurize the hydrogen or liquefy it, which also takes a lot of energy. That whole cycle is extremely energy inefficient. It's much better, rather than applying electricity to split the water, to charge a battery pack. It's like 3 or 4 times more efficient. So it's lousy as an energy storage mechanism, and it's lousy from the standpoint of creating it. It's energy inefficient. It's just bad. And then there's no bloody distribution infrastructure. Now you compare that to electricity.
Just before summer 2008, the European Commission announced a new partnership with, let's say, the hydrogen industry, of which the car industry is an important partner, to throw many hundreds of millions of subsidies again at hydrogen as a fuel. That's one example of the subsidies that the industry is enjoying. Unfortunately, we are seeing much less action in the field of, let's say, hybridization, the move to plug-in hybrids, and also the move to electric cars, because
I think most analysts in the industry, and we also agree that the transition to electricity holds much more promise than the transition to hydrogen.
IKEA is using this vehicle for doing standard jobs. It is in customer hands, and we get the feedback from this cooperation.
Is there a date set for production of these vehicles so that I can buy one in a dealership?
We don't talk about introduction dates right now. We are working on being fast to the market, and it is something where the infrastructure and the development, the production development of the fuel cell powered vehicle has to go on.
But no specific date for a hydrogen vehicle?
No specific date, and it is something that we are absolutely convinced this will come for sure. But we are not ready to announce the production date of a vehicle right now.
But is there sort of like an idea that it will happen in, say, 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? Or?
Don't talk about a production date right now.
Okay.
Well, if one were to be cynical about it, you'd say they don't really have an answer, so they have to pick a technology that's always 10 years away. And that allows them to, for the critics, say, what are you doing about the future? Oh, we work on hydrogen, it's 10 years away. And except that every year it's always 10 years away, because it'll never succeed in any kind of production situation.